So we don't have that many people today, but I'm still happy to do the call because that it will be uploaded, and that's good way for people to stay up to date with what's going on with the DAO. Today on the agenda we have futarchy as a service, the retrospective on building it, and the next step for it moving forward. The reason why we move from a order book system to AMM, mainly liquidity and TWAP. I will talk about the founder compensation plan, which is the first MetaDAO proposal that passed in a while. We'll talk about Drift launch and their proposal, and there were a few other launches. Future has launched. I believe Dean is going to launch soon. Prophet is in Island DAO with them right now. An update on the benevolent dictator. What's optimistic governance? I'm also launching a podcast and an honorary collection for the futards that helped this project birth. And yeah, also there is Solana Village in Kuala Lumpur coming soon. I believe you and Prophet are going to be there too. We'll also answer any question people might have. Yeah, so that's basically what we're gonna talk about today. So let's get started. Maybe Nalok, you want to share the retrospective on building futarchy as a service. Maybe you want to share your screen and quickly show what the UI looks like. The floor is yours.
Yeah, cool. For sure. So quick retrospective for the proposal. Passed, $96,000 allocated, 8 weeks allocated. I think end date was May 21st. We published to production on end of day of May 21st. Certainly some bugs, but we got it there. We came in slightly under budget, and certainly, massive thank you to the team that was able to build in a new environment with new people and new things. So that speaks to their capacity and caliber to be able to get that done. It's no small feat to come in at time as developers. So I think that that's critically important. Just to go over some next steps here. We're looking to fundraise. So fundraise means that we can keep the project going. The proposal was for $96,000. That's what the proposals fund. That's what the project's funded for. Now I committed to paying out of pocket to keep things running, but that's obviously not the ideal scenario. We have server costs, we have infrastructure stuff. Those things certainly are a cost. And so next step is to fundraise. What's currently going on with it is we're getting things settled, stable, optimizing for performance and optimizing for the cost of operations, kind of put through everything at it to make sure that it would work, and want to cycle back and say, well, now that it's working, how's it working for users? How's it working across the system design and things like that? In a perfect world, and probably an intermediate world right now, we want to make sure that we're focusing on the missing initial things that got cut. Things like creating proposals, create a DAO, social features, user performance, user balances, things like that have been surfaced from the community, like trade stream, volume per market, additional indicators, and additional DAO information and links. So really want to focus on those core aspects of it to get it up to speed where ideally we wanted it. I can go through the UI. Everybody can visit the UI. It's live. Certainly encourage everybody to use it. Take a look at it. Let's see here. And I believe everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
So oh, it's not live for you. Anybody else?
I can see it now.
I can see it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, we have our DAO browse page. Important things here to note is that we have priority fees enabled now. So you can go in and set your setting for priority fees for mainnet. DevNet's just so amazing to work with. Everything just works. MetaDAO, we'll just go through this briefly. MetaDAO has only archived proposals. One of the key things that we wanted to accomplish here was make sure that you could see what is in proposals. So even past proposals will showcase any token balance that you have with this specific wallet so that you can go into the market and you can trade it. Historical proposals don't have pricing information. We may go in and backfill that at some point in time, but at least you can view the proposals. I did take some time to go in and put the proposal content. If I had markdown, I use the markdown. If not, then it's kind of this amalgamation of text. I may go in and make sure that that looks good. You have your proposal view, which provides details on the proposal specifically related to it. You have reactions that are linked with the wallet signature. So yeah, so this has been pretty interesting. We have the capacity to view markets. I'll go to an actual live market. Have your pass and fail markets. Click here for those. You can click here for those. Provide liquidity. You have your swaps. Ideally, we come out with some more features there. I'm just going to run through it quickly because anybody can go through futarchy.metadao.fi and get to this. We do have a currently live proposal for futures token or future DAO. So yeah, this has current systems and data. We are working on a few bugs to deal with time zone stuff, but in effect, this is where you can mint. You can reconstitute your tokens. So if you have, it's the min between the two. So you can only do a 1-for-1 ratio while the proposal is active. So if you do swap into it, if you see here, I have a balance of 742 fail future and 1,484. So I can only take the min of those two that are 1-to-1 ratio. This is your swap, buy, sell, also swap. This is your liquidity provision. You can provide liquidity. You earn 1% fees off of that. If you want to view your transactions, we can kick out and you can see the actual transaction here. One other thing that I know people maybe were asking for in some way, if you want to see the chain data, you can go back to the proposal and you can click here, and then this will take you to the Explorer, which will have the anchor data pulled up for you. And from here, you should be able to get back to any kind of data that you may find interesting or curious about. One thing that somebody brought up, or that we brought up, is that the end date's a moving target, unfortunately and fortunately. There's some trade-off there, but importantly, it's in slots. So slots are estimated based on 400 millisecond slot time. When it comes to reality, that's not typically the case. So a 3-day proposal in slots may be, I think right now roughly is about 12 to 13 hours net difference in block time versus real time. One of the reasons you use slots is because if the blockchain went down, the market, if you used Unix time, then the market would be expired. It could be expired by the time it gets back up so that you don't have an opportunity to trade. That's not ideal. So slots are the way that you ensure that versus like a Unix time or a real time that does get pulled down into the slots. Otherwise, we look forward to Dean's list is coming online. Drift. I'm really encouraged that the proposal went through. I was really encouraged with the conversation that was going on in the Drift Discord and then our Discord with respect to that. Interested to see what Big Z thinks about all that. And then if anybody has any comments or feedback, you can obviously go into the Discord for the Bugs channel. We also have a canny set up if anybody wants to go through and fill that. I do monitor this and make sure that this is triaged and put into tickets appropriately. So we've got quite a bit of that. Yeah, so I will stop streaming there, and that catches us up, I believe.
Dope. Thanks for the little run through. The next question was, and I had this question a lot. People wonder why we moved to an IMM. Previously, we were using order books. Do you want to answer this, Nalok?
Sure. So there's security risk in order books, given the fact that to register TWAP, um, you have to have a way. Just with limit order books, you have to have a way to register TWAP when it comes to creating the orders and doing things like that. So you have to have a criteria there that says if an order is placed within a certain range, then this gets recorded. But if it's not, um, then it's not going to get recorded. So you have to set multiple criterias and thresholds, and nothing really has to be traded for that to occur. And there's probably some optimizations you could build and then bring that back, absolutely. But in the sense of deploying for other DAOs and other people, the general understanding and complexity associated with that was considered, and an AMM certainly solves that um, with TWAP recording on swaps. So yeah, it's more of a security thing and a urgency thing for not necessarily building something new and then trying to solve and test it. This is a tried and true method and methodology associated with a Uniswap v1 that's been out live for a long time, but certainly absolutely keen to get order books back. How that will all integrate and work is still an open question, but something that I believe that we can solve, and still like the simplicity of AMM. Definitely some nuance there, definitely some nuance with liquidity for sure, but overall meant we could get something audited securely and confidently deployed without any potential for exploits.
Nice, super clear. Um, Next, we have the first MetaDAO proposal on this new system, which was for the founder compensation to align profit and your incentive with the MetaDAO shareholders. You went for something really bold here. Can you explain why you did that?
Yeah. I think like everything in crypto should be an experiment, and an experiment in the right direction. And I think there's there's a palpable problem in crypto with applications and the way that we've designed these things, and that's not any particular person's fault. If investors are willing to accept that and participants are willing to accept that, then that's what the market's willing to accept. In this case, we definitely wanted to at least charge ahead and try to create a system that we think that if other teams and other projects were to follow, we would have uh, a different crypto to be looking at. And I think that that's one of the core tenets of why I joined crypto, to change the future of finance and make it accessible. And what's come of it has certainly done a lot of interesting and good things, and then certainly brought about some not so ideal things. But yeah, we wanted to come at it and say, like, these aren't arbitrary numbers. These aren't things that um, are pulled out of status quo. They may match and make sense, and that should make sense, right? The reason that these incentive programs are designed the way they are, the reason that you have legal structure that's reused, is because it's been tried and tested. We just certainly wanted to come back and say, well, here's how we got there, so that you afford a process by which other people could either be onboarded or other teams may take a look and consider this. And one of the principal problems that's identified is that you have this um, concave versus convex payout. And in traditional tech, and we could argue about this, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but traditional tech has a convex payout, um, in the sense that you have to work towards an exit event, and deliver on something that then the broader community or the retail or the broader world sees value in and has scale and capacity and impact to justify that value, versus a concave payout with crypto. Typically, um, it's great. I think that people should be rewarded. A lot of this industry is unknown and high risk taking, and I think that there's probably like a smart middle ground, and that's where combining this convex and concave payout, you get a linear line. So if you have a curve in one direction, a curve in the other, and you take the delta or the addition of the two, you'll end up with this linear payout curve. And so what we did here was say, in essence, we worked backwards from a principal agent problem, which said we need to incentivize management, in this case, management, from the context of the principal agent problem, to say if there's failure, what's the risk and the opportunity cost, and if there's success, what should the payout have to be to demand this time at full exertion of energy and output. And we work backwards from there. You can read the proposal for our numbers and calculations, but if, in effect, you create this exponential, it's kind of more logarithmic curve, or a square root curve. Is between log and square root, or some form of a root curve, where you can say, like along this line, where does your payout have to be based on some input values, and your input values are how many years are you going to work on this, how hard do you think it's going to be, and how likely do you think you're going to be successful. So that roughly between us came to about 2%. Was it? Yeah, 2% per billion in value of token. So, for us to be rewarded, I think profit was at 562 million, and then I was at 360 something, 346 million, or maybe those were inverse. So if we split the difference there, that's the rough linear, the rough chart or plot of the line to get where we want to go. I think what's important here for people to understand is that it's awarded via proposal paid into the to be determined lock contract. And the DAO at any time can choose not to award into the contract. Whether that's in the best interest of the DAO or the best interest, of us, may be up for debate. But we certainly still wanted to, this is decentralized. This is demanded, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the DAO has to fulfill on it. So, any other additional questions that you had?
Yeah, is it something you expect other DAO to follow through, like to adopt the same kind of compensation plan they launch with futarchy under maybe in the future the umbrella of MetaDAO? Like, did you try to show the example
I
by doing this too?
Yeah. So, the example's out there in the wild. So anybody can do this. Um, I think you kind of, it's definitely interesting to see other people's numbers. And it's certainly an exercise I've been encouraging other people to do. Like for 4 years at a set salary, with what do you think the chance of success is? And then how hard do you think it is going to be for you? Those are some arbitrary input values for you, but it leads to different curves and different behaviors. So I think that I'd be really keen to see teams come back and say, yeah, we awarded properly, which is fine. Like, I think that the reason that you get to like 25% team equity is because this is fairly reasonable and people have done this enough time that this is probably like an acceptable range. But I do think that the math behind it, and seeing what a team's input is quite interesting to see who, like, my utility cost was much higher than profits, but my chance of success was double his. So his utility cost was half of mine, and then his probability of success was 10% instead of 20%, just because crypto and other risks. Um, but he demanded, like from this function, demanded quite a higher return due to that, whereas mine was a lower return, and you kind of see how these numbers interact with each other.
Cool, thanks. We have Big Z with us today. Big Z, do you want to explain what was the Drift proposal, and also explain how you set up Drift governance with these three different systems where you have, yeah, I'll let you run through it.
Yeah. I guess I can just start with why Drift devs and Drift team were interested in futarchy, and decided to uh, like add a part of governance that is using it with the hope that if it shows promise, like more aspects of governance could be maintained by the futarchy part. So yeah, I mean, Dalek and Prophet and a bunch of other people, honestly, in MetaDAO, like really just attracted a lot of high quality Solana thinkers and builders. And like that's exactly what projects um that's exactly what like projects need um to like be long lasting. So clearly like a lot of people were interested in futarchy. Um so like incorporating futarchy very early on was like everybody, it was like a no-brainer basically across the team. Um, and then like right now, I guess futarchy is only being used for grants. So like somebody can submit a proposal, say I want to do X or whatever, and
Hey, Big Z, you walked away from your microphone, so we can't hear you.
oh, is this better? Okay. Um, yeah, the first proposal is basically just a grant for this executor group, which Prophet and two other Drift community members um, are a part of, and basically that executor group is just going to monitor the futarchy usage and basically reward active participants and proposers who submit like good passing proposals, just as like a cherry on top, I guess, just to incentivize usage. And then the other part is to do a retroactive reward to MetaDAO participants slash holders. So like the criteria was quite strict, and the payout is quite low, but it's just kind of like an endowment effect type attempt where it's just like trying to say like please look at Drift Futarchy. Um, yeah, it's a really simple basic proposal, and have some stats that I set up in Dune around that, just monitoring how active people were. So we saw 36 unique addresses hit the AMM for this first proposal, and it was over 100 and it was 123 trades. So I think it was like over a weekend too. So it was really
Yeah,
cool to see like
that's
this is like higher than most governance votes on Ethereum for something so small. So it was really cool to see like even with the holiday timing and weekend timing, people like people were intrigued enough to try it out. And I'm sure Nalik knows this, but there's so many things that would be great to improve upon in terms of UX and usability, visibility, and stuff. So it's really promising to hear that they're thinking about ways to fund and build out all those things and triage, obviously, between all the requests that people have. Important too.
I think that's really sick, like that number of users and trading, like you said, like participation and governance. But then like the important thing too is like the outcome, even with a smaller participation cohort, still, like in effect worked. And that's pretty cool. And I definitely was engaged with a lot of the communications that were going on in the Drift Discord, which I think Prophet and I discussed that it's probably better to have it's actually better to have the reaction that it did and be able to like, communicate and hopefully try to meet people halfway than it is to like have no reaction to it. So was
Oh,
was pretty
totally.
engaged with that.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, just like in a word, to people who have never seen things like this. people in crypto, I think, since the 2022 cycle are much more skeptical just about like any new thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't want to get screwed, you don't want to be the yield, right? Like those all those like memes, right? So it's like um yeah, I think it's really good that it was great to see like you guys jumping in there and just explaining things to people. Some people get it like when it clicks, it's like, oh, there might be something here, and then people need to like see it in action a little bit more, and there needs to be a lot more in the UI, and you know, needs to be more
Yeah.
palpable. Yes.
Yeah, I think that that's the point, and that's the other thing that I brought up with Profit was, for every person that's communicating in a Discord, there's like 100 other people that are like watching and listening and reading that are like picking up on stuff like this. So you can have a vocal minority, but people do read, people do consume this stuff, so it is important to engage. And then I only have one question: when's Drift gonna put a proposal up to buy a zoo?
By what?
I used an example in the Drift Discord that like Drift wants to buy a zoo because they think that they'll earn $21 million back to holders. Just as a ridiculous example to
Oh, I
try to
just
illustrate.
an RWA. Like we're gonna buy a zoo.
Yeah. I said because Drift likes zebras, and then you'll have a ton of snakes too. So net benefit.
Yeah, I mean that can go up. I mean, you're if anything, I think you're the only one who knows how to put that up for the time being.
Yeah, that's also something really cool with futarchy. Now that we have a few launching, um, in traditional governance system, you have an interest to vote for the DAO you care about and your shareholder of. But with futarchy, you have an incentive just to make money trading anything that's live, and so hopefully we'll see MetaDAO people trade Drift proposal and Drift people trade MetaDAO proposal, and that will only grow and compound. And it's also true that the numbers you gave are pretty impressive, at least to me. And for a lot of people who trade, there are also a lot of people who watch, just because sometimes they are ready to buy at a certain price, but that price is not met, or there is not enough liquidity yet for them to trade. But if the market diverge, and it's become a bit underpriced, they might deploy, and so you'd never really know how many people are watching said proposal. But yeah, that's super cool and super exciting. What's going on, by having communities kind of intertwine with each other. So yeah, looking forward to Right Drift proposal now. Um, yeah, Nalok, there are also a few other launching. Do you want to share a few words about them, or how the launch cadence is going?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that kicks us into the benevolent dictators for 3 months. I know Prophet has been posting. He did post monthly updates, but then has switched to weekly updates. But are you cool with me just going into that, because that'll discuss some of this stuff?
Sure, go on.
Cool. Yeah, so our goal with the product launch was 3 DAOs. So we had slated those. Certainly some unknown with Drift when token launch and those kinds of things. Obviously, there's some sensitivity associated with that. But at this point, we've got 4 DAOs, including our own tenancy. But we're working with Dark Protocol, and then with OR, although OR is probably significantly behind or delayed. It just depends on like what that's going to look like with them. But that's so far who we've been in direct communication with, and definitely have like thumbs up with, and really encouraged to see what we can do there. The Just to circle back at a high level for the benevolent dictators for 3 months, we certainly wanted to launch faas and onboard 5 DAOs, which was our target. Um, that should be completed before the end of the month, at least with 5 out of 5, including our own. Now, with the other, then that's 5 out of 5, excluding MetaDAO, which is great. We wanted to construct the AMM system and get that audited. I'm not entirely sure where we are with the official publication of the audit, but the audit was complete, and we went back and changed a few things up based on the audit feedback. So I do believe that we are going to have an official report with respect to that. And then the other thing was, making sure that we encouraged and structured processes a little bit more. And definitely had Profit and I work through that. So proposals moving forward with MetaDAO will certainly have changes in it as far as communications, leads, and associated parties with that. We don't want to have proposals that sit there without somebody dedicated to being available to communicate with the communities, and somebody that's going to have some sort of cadence associated with it. What that looks like, I mean, we did fast launch where we did weekly sprint planning. We did it all in public. We had channels set up for all of this stuff. I don't know how many people joined it. I don't know how many people were following along. Certainly a burden associated with doing it in public, and certainly a burden making sure that this stuff was done. So there's some lessons there that I don't know that I'd encourage everybody to do, but it's definitely an experiment that I wanted to do. But basically moving forward with process and just reflecting back on the now 16 proposals that we put out, maybe more. Just want to make sure that we're taking learnings and we're making sure that we're applying it to help other people in their proposal endeavors there. And then finally, we wanted to there's a fork in this road right now that may probably necessitates some fundraise. And we're working on that process right now. We're getting a pitch deck together, and then we've been invited by Coliseum guys to put our 2-minute pitch together, video pitch, to put that into the end of this month. So that's what we're trying to target. So we think that would help facilitate and engage future build out and integrations within this ecosystem, and we think that it's important. There's certainly a world where, with Profit and I, we could probably charge ahead, but that's definitely max pain, and I don't necessarily see any direct benefit for that outside of, you don't take on a fundraise to have a dilution event. That being said, the fundraise would run just like we would do it any other proposal. It may be, say that Profit and Nalek get X number of tokens to do an OTC deal for the VCs, but we'll stipulate it has to be at TWAP spot price over the past 7 days or something to that nature, and that'll be the deal that's done. There's no or we go back and we say everybody that wants some, this will be the deal. But so we do plan to put that through either proposal process or stipulate it clearly to make sure. But the way that we look at it, it's the valuation of the token as a startup, the scale that we have, we think that is appropriate. So anyway, so that's kind of the wrapping this up at the end of the 3 months, have that in the queue, and make sure that we have a path forward with that. And that affords the opportunity to bring on people that you can't afford with, not that money in reserves or in the treasury. It makes it certainly harder to encourage and staff people accordingly, or even have a longer term perspective and direction that you'd like to pursue if we have to do like proposals at 4 months time or anything like that.
Sorry, I was muted on my mic. I was also going to ask, since Prophet's not here, do you want to talk about optimistic governance?
Absolutely. I'll talk till the cows come home if you let me. Yeah, so the way that we look at optimistic governance, or one of the key things that for benevolent dictators was increased throughput, afford execution speed, and decision making process. Whereas proposals even at 3 days certainly may not afford that, and proposals that depend on other proposals may not afford that. So optimistic governance, or the way that we're looking at it, is kind of like a roll up or a shared sequencer on other chains, as an example, where your sequencers are authorities, in this case Profit or I, where we have the capacity to put transactions into a time locked contract that is queued up for execution. And the timing on that, I'm not sure that we're finalized on, but for example, the transaction queued up may be 4 days in the time lock, which affords the capacity for the DAO to come in and create a proposal that can eject that from the queue. So there is checks and balances within that. This stuff obviously has quite a bit that needs to be surfaced to notify the DAO members and Discord and all these other things, to make sure that nothing kind of slips by. Monitoring tools for the time lock, those kinds of things. But basically, we can put transactions in queue under time lock. The DAO can trigger a proposal to eject the transaction from the queue. And then the DAO can also trigger a proposal to eject the sequencer from its permissioned access. So the DAO can remove us as sequencers and add additional people to sequencers as well. There's also spam protection, so you can't create another transaction when a transaction created by that sequencer has already been generated. And then the ultimate goal here is to increase throughput while maintaining decentralization. So just like these optimistic rollups and other layer 2s work, this would afford us something like that, which you could also elect and remove and change membership over time as well. And there's an incredible amount of nuance and potentially UI and integrations and tooling and open source tooling to make sure that people know how to monitor this stuff and keep things accountable, dashboards and things like that. So definitely want to work on that. But we think that it's a interesting solution and a way to afford normal operations that just need to get done, and then on the other end of that, reject things outright, or say these are bad actors now and we need to find a better sequencer.
Great. We have a few more updates. There is Solana Village in Kuala Lumpur that I believe you and Prophet are attending. Right now, Prophet is in Island DAO. He's going to launch DIN. I think I already said that. That's maybe why he's not here today. I'm going to launch a podcast called Futars, where I will interview the different futars from our community to learn their personal stories and then to discuss market dynamics with them. I'm pretty excited to run that. And there's also an honorary collection for the people who've been helping summon the DAO. Now, if anyone has some question, I would love to have you on stage and answer anything you might have on your mind. Please come join us.
And I just want to say that Dean's planning to launch the proposal in around 24 hours from now. Just so everybody's aware of that. Yeah, so we should have another proposal live, which will overlap a little bit with Future, but definitely wanted to launch it while Profit was there. We've got the DAO set up in the front end and on the back end and on the indexing, so that stuff should be rocking and rolling within 24 hours. And knock on some wood and don't quote me on any time with this stuff.
Cool. That's dope. Looking forward that. By the way, I see that Lukash is here. Lukash, do you want to come give some insight on how the indexer works and why an indexer is needed?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So great question. So the indexer is essentially, I guess you could think of it as like a centralized cache layer for a lot of the some on-chain and off-chain data. Generally a mix of data that we want to cache to improve user performance. So, at the end of the day, it's a database, and we've got a couple different services that are going to write into that database. So for things like user balances, details about proposal, um, especially things like like your swaps table, that's getting fed from the indexer. Um, things like thinking of other things here, DAO information essentially, um, prices as well. A lot of the prices, the chart prices, to fetch that from on chain wouldn't really work. So it's basically a layer to enhance the UX.
And critically have history, so that you can
Yes.
like you can fetch on-chain state data, which is great. That's the most up to date and recent. But to get what was a price or what was a swap or a trade historically, go back through and pull that data out is definitely a very large issue on Solana, depending on how you want to do it and what kind of efficacy you want to seek with it. But yeah, like by doing some of the things that some of the strategies we have right now, we get historical data capture at set intervals so that we can always run back through, and we can always generate this information so that we can not inundate RPCs and show cool things from a UX UI perspective.
Exactly. Yeah, we do a combination of kind of cron jobs to fetch different account states and different data, as well as subscribing to certain programs and accounts, indexing transactions, and then flowing that data out to where we want to, so user can see all their orders and their swaps over time, uh, and eventually their profit and loss over time as well. So it kind of unlocks a lot of cool future features for us as well.
Great. I don't see any question in the chat or anybody raising hand, so I think it's a good place to wrap it up.